Welcome to Journey On. I'm DJ Burr, the host and executive producer. I'm a licensed psychotherapist, behavioral addiction specialist, and best-selling author of I Just Wanted Love, Recovery of a Codependent Sex and Love Addict, available on Amazon, Audible, and iTunes. This podcast is for male survivors of sexual abuse and assault who want to experience a life worth living beyond a tragic past. I'm a survivor just like you, and I know the complexity of healing from trauma. I also know the joy that comes from the healing process. Hear our stories and share your own. You are not alone. You too can breathe deep and journey on. I encourage you to visit the Journey On website, www.journeynonpod.com. There you will find a link to sign up for my Recovery Journey newsletter, learn about my weekend recovery events for male survivors, and my online recovery coaching services for male survivors. If you have questions, concerns, or comments, or would like to be on the show, email me at journeynonpodcast@gmail.com. Journey On is on social media. Tweet us at JourneyOnPod. Find us on Instagram and Facebook at Journey On Podcast. Today we have with us Loren Michaels Harris, and Loren is going to be talking to us about his experience, strength, and hope around sexual abuse survival. Loren, welcome to the show.
Thank you, DJ. How are you today?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm really glad that you and I were able to connect, and I'm curious how you heard about the show and what interested you about being on.
Well, my partner is actually a psychotherapist, as you are, and saw your information come across. You guys do a lot of great cross-promoting and whatnot with each other. And we're always looking for ways to further our stories and our commitment to doing something about change. And so it was brought to my attention, and it was absolutely a no-brainer to get in touch with you.
Well, I'm glad that you did. How about you start off and telling us a bit about, where you're from, and because, we're going to have listeners from all over the world, so it'd be nice for people to know exactly where you are.
Sure. Well, I currently reside in Naperville, Illinois. It's a beautiful town. I absolutely adore it. I moved here from Michigan. I'm engaged. I'll be getting married this October, which is something, I had thought would never, ever, ever, ever happen to me. I had resigned myself to being one of those people who was meant to walk this journey completely alone. I'm 55 years old this 4th of July, and I kid you not, until this relationship, I had only had one attempt at a relationship in my entire life. And I'm pretty sure, I'm absolutely certain, not even pretty sure, I'm absolutely certain that was due to a lot of the things that we're going to talk about today, as far as the abuses and whatnot. So I just mentioned that for anyone who can relate to that, and just know, that happiness is out there and it is obtainable. Believe it or not, it's not about quantity, it's about quality. And so it can happen if it's what you're looking for. But I was born in southwestern Michigan. Of course, I just gave you my age, so put a number on it, 1962. And I was born to a single mother who was recently divorced when I came along. I was actually, she had relocated from Arkansas with 4 of my other siblings to get away from an abusive relationship. But my father, we all had the same father, but he was an over-the-road truck driver, and of course would come through town, even though they weren't together any longer, to check on the other siblings and drop off whatever it was he was dropping off or to visit. And apparently, one of those visits wound up with her being raped by him. And of course, that's where I came from. And I didn't find that out. My mother died not even knowing that I was aware of this, but my eldest sibling, who too has since passed, made a special trip after I found my birth family, because I was adopted. And he came and told me the story. So that was also something, that a form of abuse, even though it may be by association, but nonetheless, it had a lot to do with low self-esteem, starting all over again, because I had been working on liking myself for most of my life and thought that everything was going to fall into a magical place of belonging once I found my blood relatives. And of course, we know that that doesn't necessarily happen. So, anyway, I was not even legally adopted. It was more or less a backdoor agreement between two African American women in 1962, because my birth mother wanted to get out of the projects. She wanted to find a job and not become another arm of the system, if you will. And so they made an agreement to, with my adoptive mom, for her to take me home for what they thought would be 6 months or so until she could get on her feet. It turned into more like a year, and by the time she found the job and found the home and came to retrieve me, my adoptive mother had by that time fallen in love with me. And, this is somewhat difficult to talk about because she's the one who died when I was 9, almost 10. And I'm really speaking to her memory, but nonetheless, it is the truth. I've seen the letters before my birth mother passed away. I saw all of the documentation, so I know it to be true. But anyway, she was reluctant to give me back and had started by telling my birth mother through a letter that unfortunately I can't give your baby back because your baby died. So, yeah, so my birth mother spent all those years believing that she had entrusted me with someone only to bring me home at a later time, and I had died during the process. So, until I knocked on her door at age 32, she was living with that. So, you have to admit she was very surprised when yeah, when she saw me and met me. But people do things. I'm not saying that my biological mother, I'm sorry, that my adoptive mother was a bad person. She was not, and she did everything she could to ensure a wonderful upbringing those 9 years that she had me. However, she still, in fact, operated without any type of safety net. So she had a stroke suddenly. She was a nurse, an RN, and we had been to the grocery store one day. It was a Wednesday, and we came home, and I was doing what I always did, and hauling in the groceries from the car. And on one of my trips to the kitchen, I saw that she had fallen on, I thought she was just laying on the floor in the living room, and she was talking out of her head. And I called 911, and they came and they took her, and my other siblings came to town because I was the only one still at home. They were all in college or married, and I never did see her again because she died the next morning. And they were the ones at the hospital, and I was at home with a babysitter. So we didn't get to say goodbye or anything like that, and it was quite traumatic. But it became even more traumatic because that was a Wednesday. We buried her that following Saturday, and then that Monday, one of her friends was a state social worker, and she knew the story. My mother had confided in her because she knew I was getting older and she was going to have to do something so that I would have the right type of a legitimate birth certificate and all those things. I had been raised under the name of Larry Dixon, and when this woman showed up, I was still sleeping. I awoke to hearing two of my siblings arguing outside my bedroom door with this woman. And I flung my door open, and they all turned and stared at me. And no one said anything, and I was just looking at them. And so this social worker just looked at me and said, "Hi." She introduced herself. She goes, "I hate to be the one to tell you this, but your name is not Larry Dixon. Your name is Loren Michaels Harris, and you have been living here without there being a legal adoption since you were a week old. And I work for the state, and you need to come with me." So she gave me about 10 minutes to pack what I could. And I left that house that day with everyone in the family telling me it was just a mix-up. It was red tape, and that they would fix it, and I would be home in just a few days. That didn't happen. I was 16 years old when I left the foster system. So, I might add that I was raised in a very strict religious household. We were Seventh-day Adventist, which means, there were a lot of restrictions. I had been in parochial schools all my life. And of course, like I mentioned, I had been living with one name, and I looked like these people. I had no reason to doubt that I was anything other than who they said I was. So, the caseworker took me to my first foster home, and it's a shame we're not on video, but I'll describe it because I wear it. I never take it off. I wear a necklace. One of the speeches that I do with youth is called The Three. And this necklace, I'll describe it, has 3 different stones, 2 of the same size and 1 a little bit smaller, all 3 different colors. And they represent the 3 boys who were in that initial foster home. When I came in, it was after what we called lockdown, because even though it was a private home, as soon as the sun set, no matter what time of that took place, depending on the season, that's when you were locked in the room for the rest of the night. So they came in to the room actually after I had entered. The caseworker had left, and I remember I had kind of just fallen on my bunk on my stomach, and I had my little bag with my stuff in it, and then I had a plastic grocery bag with my mom's hand towel, because I grabbed it as I was being yanked out of the home from her bathroom because it smelled like her triple lanolin lotion, and I needed something to hold on to. So I lay there, and I remember I could hear their voices. The 3 boys, I know their names. I've sought them out in my adulthood. One was the same age as I, maybe a couple months younger. His name was John. The middle child was Alan, and then the youngest of the 3 was Andrew, and he was 3. Alan was 6. So 9, 6, and 3, and I was 9. And I could sense that they had gathered around me, and they started talking, but then 2 of the voices kind of just stepped back, and there was a spokesperson, and I found out later when I finally turned over to see who was speaking to me that it was the youngest, Andrew, because he, even though he was 3, he spoke like an old sage, a wizened old man. He was the only one of us that had actually been born into the foster system. So he had a far greater depth of experience, even at 3, than any of us had at this point personally. And it was he who placed his hand, I'll never forget it, on my right shoulder, and he told me that I probably needed to stop crying as soon as possible because there was a lot that he needed to tell me. And he said, "Listen, new kid, you need to know something. There's a man in this house, and he's a bad man. And because you're new, it's going to be your turn." And I turned over because I had no idea what he was talking about. In my mind, I had a different picture of what a bad man meant. And I was, first of all, very much taken aback because it was the smallest of them. It was Andrew, the 3-year-old. And he pointed to a twin-size mattress that was propped against the wall, one of the walls, away from where our bunks were. And he goes, there's a hole in that wall behind that mattress. He comes through there from a closet in a room that they don't use, that no one goes in. It's storage. But he comes through that room, through that closet, and into this room. You don't want to pretend like you're sleeping, because that'll make him angry, and it'll be worse. And I remember I still didn't know what he was talking about. But he went on and he told me, and he said that there are ways, it'll get easier, but you have to start by finding that place when you dream. He goes, it's the only thing they can't take from you. I'll never forget that. I can't even begin to tell you how important that word has been in my life all these years. My first opportunity to believe in something greater than myself came because of a dream at age 26. It changed my life temporarily, but nonetheless changed my life. I have a recording deal, a contract with a recording company in Atlanta right now. And the song that got me that recording deal was a song that I wrote that ended up being the theme song for a movie a couple summers ago for the Cannes and Sundance Film Festival. And that song is called Dream. So I find it very interesting that was his instruction to me, to find that place where I dream, because that was what he did, and that's what the others did in order to make it through these abuses with this bad man. This was just the first of 15 abusers. I had 22 foster homes between the age of 9 and 16. There were abusers that were women. There were abusers that were men, adults. There were abusers that were foster siblings of both sexes. And there were fellow foster brothers who were abusers. All of the things that were a result of the different types of abuses, none of the abuses, the marks from them were any more or less indelible than the other, whether it was sexual, physical, mental, or verbal. Nonetheless, I looked at all of them as scarlet letters, if you will, and they were tattooed on my spirit as well as my person. I couldn't scrub them off. I couldn't peel them off, which was a very, very hard thing. It made me believe that I was cursed. I was doomed. I was not worthy. I wasn't something that, and no matter how I tried, I had all of the things at my disposal that I'd always had as a child, as far as likability factors, all the things that my adoptive mom was always bragging about, and people were always, boasting about, Larry's this and Larry's that, and God, he's this, and wow, he's that. I still had all of that capability, but there were things that made me look at all of those things as something different than what they really were. So even though I was able to execute, I thought I had a here today, gone tomorrow mentality. I believed that I was faking it until I could make it. And it was no matter what was happening on the outside as far as success, when it came to those moments, which we all face at the end of every day, when you're in that place when you're going to sleep and it's just you and what you believe to be greater than yourself, nonetheless, those times were very dark and very lonely. That place and those times were single-handedly responsible for that unhealthy voice that would always speak to me then and tell me about how unworthy I was and who did I think I was kidding, and that no matter how hard I tried, it was always going to work out not in my favor. And it was just, very difficult. So when did it start changing for me? It started changing for me when I found my birth mother. When I think, I did find a bunch of great news, trust me. And in a way, it led to the darkest part of my life because that's when my addiction came about. It's so weird how all the way to age 32, I had never even thought about drugs. I didn't even drink, really. I'd have a beer, when I was in college, I would have a beer, that sort of thing. I remember once in the Air Force, we drank shots of tequila with the salt and lemon, and that didn't turn out well because I'm a lightweight. So that was a one-time deal. But once I found my birth mother, when I thought the irony is, the place I had been so desperately trying to scratch and crawl my way to, because I really believed that once I found these people who had the same bloodline, there would be some automatic fix, some across the board, if you will, magic wand that would heal and take every scar away, and no one would see where I had been and what had happened to me. But unfortunately, that isn't what happened. Imagine being on stage. When the spotlight is on you, you cannot see anything beyond the front row. Everyone that is blessed enough and they're respectful enough of you to occupy a front row seat in your life, you damn well better make sure that each and every one of them is healthy enough to be sitting there. Because if you tell a joke that isn't so funny, they still need to be able to support you. If you hit a note and you crack, they still need to be able to support you. I was filling the front row seats of my life with everything but healthy people. I didn't know what a healthy person looked like, smelled like, sounded like. And so I had to get used to looking out at empty seats because I still had a reason to be on stage, which is life, which is purpose. Once I found that, I didn't care so much about a packed house. Because you know what? What's a packed house if it's full of hecklers? Somebody with a rotten potato or tomato waiting to hurl it at you at the first sign of trouble.
I wanted to circle back and talk about, the abuse that you suffered in the foster homes. I'm curious if you ever confronted the abusers or went to the authorities during that time or as an adult.
No. When I was in the system, I never brought any of that up, first of all, because you have to understand the process of how they do it, the manipulation and the threat. I was always told this was it was almost like they were reading from a script, because I'd say 9 out of 10 of my abusers, even the youth abusers, would say, we know where your family lives, that, the ones that you came from. And they would say everything from they'll end up dead to if you say anything, you're going to see on the news where something bad happened. There were all kinds of things like that. Also coupled with that was the fear of not being believed, and then you're stuck there. What would happen? Because usually there were layers of abuse. And if you were the one being sexually abused, the abuser would make it seem like you were a favorite during the daylight hours. So, for instance, they had a way, like, if the other kids got a hot dog, you got a hamburger. If they got a push-up, you got a bowl of ice cream. If they had water, you had Kool-Aid. That kind of thing. And so, but also, some of them may have been getting physical beatings, and you weren't, if you were the flavor of the week. So there were.
Do you feel special during that time?
Did I feel special?
Yeah.
Actually, yes. Yes. I'm actually writing a book right now called The Glass Hours, and it speaks to that very thing, how I was, conditioned to believe one way during the time when people were allowed to see in. Now, that doesn't just mean daytime. That could mean it was like a different world in those places if your caseworker was making a visit, an announced visit. Everybody took their spots, stood on their marks, knew their lines. Okay? And the abusers would know they had looks that they could give, glances, body language, signals and signs that let you know whether you were skating on thin ice during this visit or not, So they were master manipulators, because I wasn't the first victim. And I got to say, as a foster child, if you have one kid that's a good buddy or a best friend in a home, you start at school and you like your teacher or something like that, you don't want to do anything that's going to jeopardize or rock the boat for that one thing that may be good. And it's almost like where you're doing the weighing things with your hands. Should I? But I never, ever even considered telling on one of them. Never. And as far as dealing with it as an adult, that's one of the reasons I speak about it today. Because, like I said, this is my first healthy relationship and I'm in my 50s. Well, when I was in my 20s and abuse stories started coming out, it was like if you weren't an altar boy, you weren't allowed to tell it yet. Most of the abuse stories for sexuality, as far as it pertained to a man, were people who were altar boys, had been altar boys or Boy Scouts when they were kids. I was neither of those. So I didn't want to, and then and here's another thing, I'm gay, okay? And for many years, I couldn't even accept that. When I was in the military, I put fake pictures of women and children on my desk, the same ones, or it would be family members. I would, call them on Sundays and find out what they did as a family over the weekend. So I would have legitimate stories to speak about because I wanted to make sure no one saw me. I wanted to make sure that I was promoted, as I thought I should be, and that it wasn't because this was don't ask, don't tell time back in the 80s. And Again, it was more of the thing I spoke of when I used to get off the bus and pretend I lived somewhere. It was the same thing. And so for many years, I couldn't face those things that had happened, because I thought that had turned me into who I am, when really now I know they had nothing to do with it. It's just who I am, you see. I mean, I believe that if I had never been abused, I would still be a gay male. I mean, because I know when I was a little kid, the things I liked to play with, the names they used to call me. So I look at that now in retrospect. But while I was coming to age, I didn't see it that way, because I didn't go back to, I had a hard time for a long time even thinking back beyond the day my mother died and my world changed. So I wasn't going back and comparing how I was as a small kid to, well, maybe that's why I did that, or maybe that's why I felt this. I didn't do that because I hadn't dealt with her death yet. I didn't deal with her death until I was in my 20s. I didn't have time to. They snatched me out. I was too busy dealing with, you gotta understand, my mom fell on the floor that night. It was a Wednesday night. The very next Wednesday night, I was being raped. 1 week to the day. So I had slept in my bed 1 week earlier. And now I'm in a stranger's bed with a grown man on top of me.
I imagine that was quite scary and confusing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I appreciate you
to
being...
say the
I'm sorry to cut you off, but I wanted to say that I appreciate you being willing to share that, because that's hard. That's hard to talk about for a lot of people. And I think by hearing you share the details of your abuse history and where you are now, so many more people can get help and be inspired to advocate for themselves and to, increase awareness about childhood sexual abuse. Now, I know that you are a coach and you do speaking engagements. Can you talk a little bit about what you share on?
I do. It doesn't matter what audience I am presenting to, whether it's one of my corporate clients like Whirlpool, or whether it's a middle school or a fundraising event. I always give them an element of it, because it is about bringing awareness, and as much as it's about desensitizing people to the, being able to even discuss it. I know because my own birth mother, one of the first days that week that we met each other, within the first week, and she was asking me about my life, she finally worked her way up to the system when I entered the system. And she goes, "You don't have to tell me, but was it bad in there?" And I was like, "Some of it was." And she's like what? I wasn't even 30 seconds into my first description, which I gave you all here today, about the boys, and what they told me. She didn't even get to the point where I turned over and I saw that it was the 3-year-old speaking. She jumped from her chair, covered her ears, started screaming, and ran into her kitchen. She couldn't handle it.
She couldn't handle it. It was more
and
about her.
That was when, right. And DJ, that's when it dawned on me that that's what society does. And if society isn't doing it, there are those who are willing to listen, then it's us victims who are putting the earplugs in, covering the eyes that see into our memories with our hands so that we don't have to see it. And I am a firm believer that healing comes with truth. I can't stress it enough how important it is for people to understand that your truths, your personal story, that's why I speak on living and speaking authentically, because it allows me a freedom from those scarlet letters. I have already done the hard part, DJ. I've lived the hardest part. I don't have to, when I get in front of an audience, I don't have to draw anything. People always say, draw me a picture. I'm not an artist. I don't have the ability to draw, but I can use a pair of scissors. So I basically take those emotional scissors built with character from everything I've experienced, I cut that memory out, and I paste it in front of you. Uncut and real.
That sounds very
And that's
powerful.
what resonates with my audiences.
Yeah, I can see why. And that's what's resonated with me as you've been telling us this story today, and it's impactful. The way you go about it is impactful, and I hope that our listeners are impacted the way I have been impacted today.
Thank you. I hope so too. Because you know, it's the sad part is that for those of us as survivors who have gone through all these different things, and a lot of them are intertwined and interconnected. It's a shame when you start getting into your 50s and 60s and you still feel like you're dragging something behind you. I am learning now in my 50s with my career in speaking and coaching that these things, if you are willing to stick to your truths, because you know, how important is the truth? TJ, the truth is very important. As far as I know, it is the only thing in the universe, the only thing that never changes. If I put a twist on my experiences, I'm not giving you the truth. I'm giving you a version of the truth. And the more I do it, the further from the truth it becomes. That's why when I was talking about skipping through yards, how I didn't realize then that was laying the foundation for the thing that was going to enable things like drugs to take me out of my world. Out of this world. I had already made it through the hardest parts. The things that happened to me as a child that I had no control over. But because I did not know how to embrace my own truths in order to tell my story. So now, here's what happens every time, every opportunity. And that's what each time, there's more than one way to tell your story.
Exactly.
If you're not a speaker, you can write it.
Yeah.
If you're not a writer, maybe you can speak it. But no matter what, there is a way, some way, somewhere for you to share it. If it is supporting organizations that do something about it, go. Support, volunteer. Because when you give away, you get to keep all the things that are wonderful. You don't have to worry. You can get out of that here today, gone tomorrow mentality that so many of us are tricked into believing is our destiny. You know.
Wow, I really appreciate that.
Yes, just, you know, each person has to find a way to embrace their truth because you've already lived it. You've done the hard part. If you want to break through, you're going to have to do it by helping others. That's the best way. It works in everything. That's why pay it forward is such a great thing. That's why random acts of kindness are such great things. Because if you don't find a way out of the darkness, out of the depression, it will devour you. And it's full of nothing but untruths. That loud voice of non-reason, that voice of, you know, talking you into feeling unworthy, that's where it lives. But every time you speak or live authentically, you take back what was rightfully yours because you've already earned it. That's what makes me love what I do, because every day I help someone else. They may have only taken one step forward, but because I assisted in that, I went 3, 4, 10, 1,000 steps forward. You see?
Yeah, I can see it. And, I wonder, can you tell us your web address and how folks can reach out to you to see if you might be available for coaching or other services that you might provide?
Sure, absolutely. And on my site, even if it's just for daily tips of motivation, or it's not all about selling people anything, just follow on Facebook or whatever. You can find all of my social media sites on the site, but it's www.Loren, Loren, Michaels, Michaels, Harris, HARRIS.com/coaching. And there you will find information to click on. You enter your email address. It'll send a prompt to me letting me know that you have reached out, and then it will offer you, do you want to talk? Do you just want to, talk online? Is there something I can send you that can help you? If you need to know where to follow me, you'll see all of that there. That it's about a give and take. I just want people to reach out. I want to learn from you, because that's usually what happens. It's never a one-way street. When I reach out and when I have people reach out to me, it's because I need you just as much as you may need me. Because one thing I do know, if you do reach out, I work with people like you every single day. I know that you were created for more. And if you want me to show you how I know that's true, I promise you I will do it or die trying.
Wow, powerful. Loren, I truly appreciate you being willing to speak on our podcast today. And I want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart for sharing your story, because it touched me and it was very impactful. And I'm so grateful that there are going to be other people that can hear your story, because I believe it is going to be helpful. So thank you for taking out the time today.
DJ, thank you so much. And vice versa. For the listeners out there, I want you to know, people like DJ who are providing a platform, an avenue for us to find each other, are anointed by whatever you believe to be greater than we are. I know this to be true, and I am as much, if not more, grateful for you than you are for me. I mean that from the bottom of my heart, because you give those of us who need a way to speak, a variety of ways in order to speak, and it's just a blessing. So anything I can ever do, please call on me, and I hope if there's one listener out there that thinks that if you know that this was meant for you, then you reach out, and we're going to make it happen. I promise you. So thank you again.
Absolutely, absolutely. And congratulations on your engagement. And I
Thank
hope
you.
that you and your partner have a wonderful ceremony in October. That's my birth month, so it's a great month. So definitely enjoy and be happy. So thank you so much, Loren.
Thank you. Anytime at all.
Journey On is looking to hear from you. If you're interested in sharing your experience, strength, and hope with our audience, email us at journeyonpodcast@gmail.com for details. Journey On's production is currently funded in whole by me as part of my desire to provide support to those who are still suffering. Production costs fluctuate and can be prohibitive in terms of what I can offer to our audience. You can help support Journey On's mission by supporting the production. There are two options. You can donate the amount of your choice directly from your cell phone by texting the word JOURNEY to 855-735-2437. That's JOURNEY to 855-735-2437. Or you can become a patron of the show by setting up a monthly contribution by going to patreon.com/journeyon. That's patreon.com/JOURNEYON. Once there, you can select the contribution level of your choice. Thank you for considering. Don't forget to visit journeyompod.com and sign up for my Recovery Journey newsletter. Once you have subscribed, you will get more information about my weekend male survivor retreats and my online coaching services for male survivors. Journey On is produced by DJ Burr and the Recovery Legacy Network, bringing you recovery on all fronts. Learn more at recoverylegacynetwork.com. Today's music features tracks by CDK and Airtone. You can learn more about the tracks on our website, journeynonpod.com. Until next time, breathe deep and journey on.